Okay, what's up, fellas? Happy Monday. Just got finished watching the 2020 Oscar nominations not too long ago, and a little disappointed. I wanted my man Eddie Murphy to be nominated for an Oscar, but he got snubbed. A few people got snubbed. Christian Bale got snubbed for Ford versus Ferrari. You know, I might have to start a secondary YouTube channel just to discuss movies. You know, that's probably my biggest pastime hobby. I'm an incredibly passionate movie buff. Matter of fact, probably about 20 years ago, more like maybe 16 years ago, I had a friend of mine, the guy who did the Mo 1 video for me. His name is Gerard McClendon. My first Mo 1 video. He suggested way back around, what was that? I think 2003, 2004. He suggested to me and my brother that we should do a movie review videos, because me and my brother, we tend to analyze movies, man, like a professional movie critic. Yeah, I'm very much the movie. Anyway, this is not a movie channel. This is a dating and relationships, dating advice for men channel. Okay, I'm going to tackle three things. Hopefully it won't be too long, but you know me. I've said that many times before, and I hope this video is not long and it ends up being 40 minutes, 50 minutes, or over an hour. I got three things I want to talk about in the free portion, and then at least one other thing I want to talk about in the Patreon exclusive portion. First, again, this always starts off with me talking about things my followers sent me. First thing, I had some followers, at least a couple followers, send me a clip of some guy. He was criticizing, I want to say, dating coaches and PUAs in general. Dating coaches and PUAs in general. And even though in the clip I heard, I did not hear my name mentioned, my name was mentioned in the comment section of this particular video. My name was mentioned in the comments section of this particular video. And one of the criticisms this particular YouTube personality had of dating coaches and pickup artists is that these guys are not contributing to the betterment of society. They're actually contributing to the worsening of society, because all they talk about is pussy, the pursuit of pussy, and just generally how to get laid. And I don't remember his exact words, but essentially he went on to say that he feels like that's counterproductive, is shallow and superficial, and it's in the long run going to contribute to the worsening of society. Now, I can't speak for other pickup artists or other dating coaches, but I'll just speak for myself. And I've actually, this is something I've actually expressed at least a half a dozen times before. So this won't be my first time expressing this, but it looks like I'm going to have to express it again. If you analyze my 4 books, well, actually I have more than 4, but what I consider my main 4, because I actually have 7 ebooks. I have 7 ebooks. I have 4 paperbacks and 4 audiobooks. My main 4 books will be Mo 1, Who Say It Again, Possibility of Sex, and the Beta Male Revolution. Mo 1, and again, I pointed this out before. Mo 1 is not about getting laid. Contrary to popular belief and misinterpretation. Because I know when I first came out with Mo 1, that's what everybody assumed, assumed that Mo 1 was about. A lot of people assumed that Mo 1 was a get laid overnight seduction book. No, it's not. And I've repeated this a number of times. Mo 1 is not. I say that in the book. If you read actually, I want to say chapter 1 of Mo 1, I specifically say in the book going back to my 1999 version all the way up to my 2014 audiobook version, or 2017 updated ebook version. Getting laid is not the sole and specific objective of BMO1. It's not the primary objective of BMO1. Mo1 is a book about challenging yourself as a man to verbally express yourself. Verbally express yourself, particularly to women, in a manner that is more bold, more confident, more straightforwardly honest, and just generally just unapologetically real and authentic. That's the main thing Mo1 is about. It's about challenging yourself not to be a liar with people, and particularly women, not to be a misleading manipulator with people, particularly with women, and just generally not to be a verbal coward. Because the truth of the matter is, man, the vast majority of men in society are one or more of those three things, particularly when it comes to dealing with women. They're either liars, misleading manipulators, and or verbal cowards. Well, really, to me, the first two is related to the third one. When you're a verbal coward, it's inevitable that you're going to be a liar. When you're a verbal coward, it's inevitable that you're going to become a manipulator. The simple reason why, when you're a verbal coward, that means you're afraid of one of two things, if not both. You're profoundly afraid of being rejected by women and indefinitely ignored by women, and or you're afraid of being criticized by women, insulted by women, and publicly humiliated by women, which is going to be something related to my Patreon exclusive. Yeah, so when you're a verbal coward, being a verbal coward leads to the other two things, liar and manipulator. All liars are verbal cowards. All manipulators are verbal cowards. To one degree or another, they're verbal cowards. Because when you're a man who has no fear of being rejected by women, it does not bother you to be indefinitely ignored by a woman you might be attracted to, and you're not afraid of being criticized by women, you're not afraid of being insulted by women, and you're not afraid of being publicly embarrassed by women or humiliated by women, then you're going to always speak your mind. You're going to always be a straight shooter. What I call in my book, a self-assured straight shooter. That's my nickname for a Mo1 guy, is a self-assured straight shooter. So without getting too lengthy beyond that, that's what Mo1 is about. Mo1 is not specifically about getting laid. It's about changing your verbal communication style. It's about changing your verbal communication style. That's what that's ultimately about, is the manner in which you verbally communicate your general thoughts, your desires, your interests, and your intentions, particularly, again, to women. But it can also apply to how you verbally interact with members of your own gender. And I've had a lot of people point that out. They're like, Alan, your book Mo1 could go way beyond the realm of dating and relationships. Matter of fact, if I had to highlight, on a side note, highlight a criticism, as most people know, I've criticized a lot of other black men for essentially stealing a lot of my material, my contents, my talking points from my books. But if you know, there's at least one Caucasian woman that was guilty of that. The chick, Kim Scott, I think is her name. Kim Scott, she wrote a book called Radical Candor. That's essentially what she did. Matter of fact, I still have not totally given up on pursuing a lawsuit against her. There's still at least a 40 to 50% chance I might pursue a lawsuit against her. But on my first conversation with an attorney about the issue, the one thing that would possibly prevent me from winning that case is the fact that her book is not about dating and relationships. But that's what she did. Kim Scott, yeah, I'm going to say it publicly again. This chick literally took my 4 molds But she took it out of the realm of dating and relationships and instead applied it to the realm of workplace relationships. She applied it to the realm of workplace relationships, particularly in the Silicon Valley, because that's where her background is, working in the Silicon Valley. But if you look at her she has 4 different styles of verbal communication. They're essentially my 4 modes of behavior. She blocked me on Twitter for no reason. I didn't call out a name. I didn't say anything blatantly insulting her, but yet she blocked me on Twitter because she didn't want her followers knowing that she copied off of me. Speaking of that, guess who else blocked me on a social media that I just recently discovered? As you know, I was active on Instagram while I was on my cruise with my girlfriend, and somebody posted, one of the comments that was posted was, somebody said, Alan, Alpha Male Strategies gave a response to one of your videos on his Instagram page, and he included a link. But when I clicked on the link, it said, sorry, this page is unavailable. So I was like, maybe this guy sent me the wrong link. But then when I went on my girlfriend's phone and clicked on that same link, it led right to Alpha Male Strategies page, which means what? Alpha Male Strategies has blocked me on Instagram. Now, I could understand him blocking me if I had insulted him on Instagram or I went to his Instagram page harassing him or something. I ain't never posted on his Instagram page. I don't know if I've ever been to his Instagram page. But yet, he got me blocked on Instagram. I found that very interesting. Anyway, going back to my original point, Mode 1 is not about getting laid. So again, going back to this original YouTube person who said all dating coaches, pickup artists, all they talk about is pussy and getting laid. This person obviously has not read Mode 1. Because again, that is not the number 1 objective of my book, Mode 1, is getting laid. Mode 1 is about helping men overcome their fear of rejection, their fear of criticism, and just basically becoming a more confident, honest, and straight to the point verbal communicator. That's what Mode 1 is about. It's about becoming a more confident, highly self-assured, straightforwardly honest verbal communicator. Oh, say it again. Now, of my 4 books, I'll probably say that's probably the number 1 book that does put a lot of emphasis on getting laid. Is my book, Ooh, Say It Again, which, by the way, is over the last 3.5, 4 years, has been my best-selling audiobook. Mode 1 is my best-selling ebook and paperback, but actually, over the last 3.5 to 4 years, Ooh, Say It Again, with the exception of a few months here and there, has been my best-selling audiobook. Ooh, Say It Again does, for the most part, emphasize getting laid. So I won't deny that. Ooh, Say It Again does. That's not the only thing it emphasizes, but it does emphasize. Specifically, if there's one thing I would say I put just as much, if not more, emphasis in Ooh, Say It Again than just simply getting laid, is the importance of your voice, which is something I'm going to talk about before this video is over. This relates to something else I'm going to talk about. Is your voice. That's the main thing. Because see, a lot of guys who read Mode 1 thought that the only key important factor to being Mode 1 was being direct. But I've said multiple times, that's not true. A part of being Mode 1 is not just being upfront, specific, and straightforwardly honest with women about your romantic desires, interests, and intentions, and or your strictly sexual desires, interests, and intentions. But a lot of it is about being verbally smooth and seductive. Verbally smooth and seductive. That's actually the main thing I emphasize when I do my one-on-one face-to-face coaching sessions, is I help men work on managing their voice and becoming more verbally smooth and seductive. So that's the main emphasis of Ooh, Say It Again. Another thing that I talk about in Ooh, Say It Again is how most men suffer to one degree or another from what's known as Dr. Sigmund Freud's Madonna horror complex. Madonna horror complex. Most of you by now should know about the Madonna horror complex. In simple terms, here's when you know you suffer from the Madonna horror complex. If you tend to generally look at women in two distinct categories, which would be the categories of prudish, strictly monogamy-oriented good girls, or kinky, promiscuous sluts. You always look at women in one of those two categories. Good girls versus sluts. Good girls versus sluts. That means you suffer from the Madonna horror complex. That means you suffer from the Madonna horror complex. Yeah, Dr. Sigmund Freud back in the 19th century asserted that most men want to date and marry a prudish, monogamy-oriented good girl, but they want at least one mistress or one side piece that's a kinky, promiscuous slut. So anytime you want to be in a relationship with the quote-unquote proverbial good girl type, but you want to have a mistress or a side chick that's pretty much a kinky, promiscuous slut, that means you suffer from the Madonna horror complex. And that's one of my big emphases in my book, Ooh, Say It Again. But again, all things considered, I would say out of my 4 books, that's probably the number 1 book that does put a reasonably high degree of interest on the pursuit of sex, and even more specifically, short-term and or non-monogamous casual sex. Is Ooh, Say It Again. Possibility of sex. That book has nothing to do with getting laid. That book has nothing to do with getting laid. Possibility of sex, as most people know by now, that book is centers around my personal philosophy of no free attention. No free attention. Basically, Possibility of Sex is a book that's about, well, it's technically about 2 things. It's divided in 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is about, offers advice on how to identify and avoid socially interacting with the women who I refer to as manipulative time wasters. Manipulative time wasters. Manipulative time wasters, again, are women who will always give you the disingenuous and misleading impression that they have some degree of interest in sharing your company in either a romantic manner or a strictly sexual manner, when in actuality, they only want to exploit you for either your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship, and or exploit you for your financial resources and material possessions. That's a manipulative time waster. That's what the first 4 chapters of Possibility of Sex are about. It's about identifying the various types of manipulative time wasters, which Alpha Male Strategies has bitten off of big time. Yeah, I'm calling him out again. He's bitten off of the first 4 chapters of my book, The Possibility of Sex, like ridiculously. And I got like 80 guys who are Patreon subscribers of mine that would vouch for that. Part 2 of the book, I got 5 chapters in part 2 of Possibility of Sex, and they're simply about identifying women that you should never enter into a marriage with or a long-term relationship with. A marriage with or a long-term relationship with. And that would be women who are highly materialistic gold digger types, women who are man thieves, wannabe mistresses, wannabe side pieces, women who want to basically, home wreckers would be another term. Female home wreckers, women who want to just destroy your relationship with your wife, fiance, or long-term girlfriend, and once they accomplish that, they really don't want you no more. Spoiled, argumentative drama queens. Spoiled, highly argumentative drama queens. Closet misandrous. A misandrous is basically a man-hater. Closet misandrous who want to get pregnant by you and then dismiss you. And then finally, liars, cheaters, and adulterers. Liars, cheaters, and adulterers. That's what I go. So Possibility of Sex has nothing to do with getting laid. And finally, the Beta Male Revolution has really, for the most part, nothing to do with the pursuit of sexual companionship from women. That's more like my version of like a history book. That's the book that explains, I call that my prequel. It's a prequel to the other 3 books. That basically explains how the period between 1960 and 1974 dramatically changed women's sexual morals, values, and ethics. And we're still seeing the reverberations of that in today's dating scene from everything that happened between 1960 and 1974. So again, of my 4 books, the only one that comes close to being about getting some pussy is Ooh Say It Again. And even that book is not totally about just getting some pussy. It's more about verbal seduction and erotic dirty talk skills, verbal seduction skills and erotic dirty talk skills, women's sexual duplicity as a whole, and the effect of the Madonna horror complex on men's psyche and overall behavior towards women. But again, Mo 1 is a book about not being a verbal coward, being a real, authentic, confident, straight shooter. Possibly Sex is about not wasting time with women who just want to exploit you for your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship, and or your financial resources and material possessions. And Beta Male Revolution is kind of a informal pseudo-history book that discusses the impact of everything that happened between 1960 and 1974 and how it is impacted, continues to impact even today's dating scene. So for that podcaster to say Alan Roger Currie, well, again, this podcaster didn't mention me by name in the clip I heard on the podcast, but in the comment section, my name was mentioned like a half a dozen times. People's like, yeah, that's why I don't like Alan Roger Currie. All he talks about is the pursuit of pussy. All he talks about is the pursuit of pussy. All he talks about is how to get laid and how to get some pussy. One guy even went as far as to call me a pussy worshiper. Yeah, one guy had the nerve to call me. He said, man, Alan Roger Currie is nothing more than a pussy worshiper. What the fuck is that? Seriously, what the fuck is a pussy worshiper? So because you're a heterosexual man that wants to have sex with women, that makes you a pussy worshiper? How ridiculous can some of you guys be on social media and specifically on YouTube? What the fuck is that? Seriously, what the fuck is that? A pussy worshiper. I am a heterosexual man who enjoys engaging in sexual relationships with women. If that makes me a pussy worshiper, then whatever. Shit, then all heterosexual men who want sex with women are pussy worshipers if that's the case. Shit, when it comes to your sexual desires, you either a heterosexual, a homosexual, or bisexual. I'm not a homosexual, and I'm not bisexual. I'm a heterosexual. I like fucking women. I don't have no shrine in my place where I just get pictures of pussy all over the place. I don't worship pussy. These young guys crack me up with that shit. So anyway, that's the first thing I wanted to talk about, is this idea that Alan Roger Currie, as well as a lot of other dating coaches and pickup artists, are all about the pursuit of pussy. Second thing I want to talk about was somebody over the last couple of years, I want to say, I've had guys bring up this. I brought this video up myself a couple of times in past videos about Morgan Freeman did an interview with a guy named Piers Morgan. And Piers Morgan was saying to him, Morgan, I heard you have a reputation for being a ladies' man. And, Morgan Freeman played it down. And he kept, asking him about it. And Morgan Freeman basically was like, well, he said, I do have one simple philosophy that has helped me with women. And Piers Morgan said, what is that philosophy? He said, I don't believe in chasing women. Now, if you remember, I did a video last year that was a response to somebody else's video where a lot of guys in the manosphere are nowadays saying that they don't believe in approaching women. They believe in waiting for women to approach them first, initiate conversations with them first, and generally offer them choosing signals. That's the buzzword, choosing signals. I mostly attribute that to actually alpha male strategies, who blocked me on Instagram for no reason. Yeah, he's the main one, but there's some other dating coaches who've used that term too, choosing signals. And I did a video responding to my thoughts on guys. What I basically said in my previous video, without getting too lengthy again, is that to me, the only time you're going to have a high degree of success exclusively waiting for women to approach you first and initiate conversations with you first is if you either a celebrity, somebody somebody who's rich and famous, or someone who's amazingly good looking and that's oozing with sex appeal. That's, to me, that's my own opinion. That's the only two guys that to me are going to have a high success rate exclusively waiting for women to always make the first move. It's guys who are rich and famous and or guys who are amazingly good looking and oozing with sex appeal. If you ain't in them two categories, I would not recommend you exclusively wait for women to make the first move on you. A lot of you guys will be waiting forever. I'm just going to keep it real. A lot of you guys will be waiting forever. But the quick clarification I want to make is that there is a difference between chasing women and approaching women. A lot of guys tend to confuse and conflate those two. They treat those two like they're one and the same. That's not true. I've approached quite a few women in my life. There's a lot of women that I was the first one who approached them and initiated a conversation with them. But I did not chase them. I did not chase them. Approaching women and chasing women are not, I repeat, not the same thing. What's the difference between approaching women is simply what it says. If you're at a party and you see a woman, I don't know, sitting on a couch at a house party, and you go over to that woman and sit next to her and you introduce yourself and you basically initiate a conversation with her, that would be representative of you approaching that woman first. So let's say you at a house party, woman sitting on the couch, you go right next to her and you say, "Hey, my name's Alan. What's your name?" And she says, "Lisa." And you say, "Hey, Lisa, I find you to be very attractive. I think you're very sexy. And I think we should share each other's company at some point in the next 2 or 3 weeks. What's your thoughts?" And then she responds however she responds. That is not you chasing a woman. That would be representing you approaching a woman and you initiating the conversation first. You made the first move to initiate the conversation between you two, but you wouldn't be chasing her. Chasing a woman is when you're repeatedly or continuously making advances to a woman who either has done one. Here's basically the 4 levels of interactions you can have with a woman. I would generally put all of them in 4 general categories. Number 1, waiting for a woman to approach you and initiate a conversation with you. I already discussed that. That's one way you can interact with a woman, is waiting for her to approach you and initiate a conversation with you first. Number 2, you approaching a woman and you initiating a conversation with her first. That would be number 2. Number 3 would be what's formally known as chasing. Chasing. Chasing happens in a situation where, let's use that same example. You're at a house party and you introduce yourself to a woman, Lisa, and say she gives you her number, you give her your number, and you, over the next, 7 days, you call her at least 3 or 4 times over the next 7 days, even though she has yet to return any of your calls. That would be representative of you chasing a woman. That would be the true definition of you chasing a woman. Chasing a woman tends to happen when you've done one or 2 things. When you've expressed your desires, interests, and intentions to a woman, but she has yet to reject them or reciprocate them. You've expressed your desires, interests, and intentions to a woman, but she has yet to reject them or reciprocate them. And you just keep initiating efforts to remain in communication with her. That's chasing. That's chasing. Or secondly, you really haven't expressed your desires, interests, intentions of a woman because you're mode 2 or mode 3 Everything about your conversation up to this point has been vague and ambiguous. At minimum, it's been vague and ambiguous, or at maximum, it's been dishonest and misleading. So she really doesn't have anything to reject or reciprocate. But you still keep making efforts to communicate with her. That's also chasing. That's chasing a woman. And the fourth level of social interaction would be harassment, coercion, and or assault. Harassment, coercion, and or assault. That would be if you, say, approached a woman, initiated a conversation with her, you express a desire to share her company in a romantic manner or a strictly sexual manner, and she flat out, point blank, rejects you. But even after she rejects you, you continue to make romantic advances towards her and or sexual advances towards her when she's already made it clear she's not interested in sharing your company in any type of romantic or strictly sexual manner. That would be harassment, at minimum harassment. And if you start putting your hands on her, it can turn into coercion/assault. Coercion/assault. So again, the four types of social interaction you can have with a woman is a woman makes the first move and initiates a conversation with you. You approach her and initiate a conversation with her first. Third would be chasing, which you approach a woman, initiate a conversation with her, but because she has neither reciprocated or rejected your desires and interests, you continue to make repeated efforts to maintain communication with her, or you've never really clearly expressed your desires and interests, so the woman doesn't have anything to really reject or reciprocate. And then finally is harassment/coercion/sexual assault. Like if you listen to that interview with Morgan Freeman, he never said that I don't approach women. Matter of fact, I want to say he did say a lot of times he has approached women and initiated a conversation. He never said I don't approach women. He said I don't chase women. Again, those are two different concepts. There's a difference between chasing and approaching. Again, chasing is when you continue to make efforts to communicate with a woman and socially interact with a woman who already knows what your desires, interests, and intentions are, but she has yet to reciprocate them or reject them. Or secondly, you never made your desires, interests, and intentions clear, so the woman doesn't have anything to really reject or reciprocate, but yet you keep making repeated efforts to communicate with her and socially interact with her. That's chasing. Get it? Got it? Good. And the third and final thing I want to talk about in the free portion is just yesterday or this morning, I want to say, somebody sent me a link to a video of a young brother that used to be in my comment sections heavy duty in 2018 and at least the first half of 2019. Young brother by the name of StephIsCold's. His moniker is StephIsCold. And as you know, me and him had at least 2 or 3 exchanges to do with the whole copycat issue, but I don't want to talk about that again. But anyway, he did a video called, and this is going to bring me to the discussion topic I had in my last video, this movement by black men called SYSBM, which stands for Save Yourselves Black Men. He did a video, I think it's called Why Black Men Are Choosing SYSBM. And one of my followers wanted me to listen to it and offer my thoughts on it. So I'm going to go ahead and offer my thoughts on it. Now, I don't like to really talk about, one thing you'll find about me, I don't like to spend too much time talking about specific black stuff, because I actually have more non-black followers and supporters and clients than I do black. So one thing I said when I first got on YouTube, and some people felt some kind of way when I said this, but one thing I made clear when I first got on YouTube, I said, I am not a black men's dating coach. I am not a black men's dating coach. I am a men's dating coach who happens to be black. There's a difference. There's a difference between being a black men's dating coach and a men's dating coach who happens to be black. Like, if I had to give one example, like Mumia Obsidian Ali, who, believe it or not, I made a surprise appearance on this podcast show last week to discuss, of all things, SYSBM. But he's now thrown his hat in the dating coaching arena. And that's how he specifically markets himself. He markets himself as a dating coach specifically for black men, and even more specifically for what he calls non-select black men. No, I've never marketed myself as a dating coach specifically for black men. I would say, if I was to give a rough estimate of my client base, I would say about maybe 20% of my clients and regular supporters are black men. My largest percentage of clients, supporters, regular followers are Caucasian men. Number 2 would be Asian men. Number 3 would be Hispanic men. And number 4 would be a tie between black men and Middle Eastern men. That would be my general client base. Yeah, my client base is predominantly Caucasian. So anyway, all that to say, I don't like to spend too much time on my videos addressing stuff that only black men will be able to relate to. But Steph's video was about black men in relation to movement. And he said, I had mixed feelings on a lot of stuff he said in a nutshell. I had a lot of mixed feelings. There's some stuff I at least halfway agree with, but there's other broad, here's my 2 issues with a lot of people, man. I don't like people who express a lot of broad generalizations. And I know a lot of people do that on purpose on YouTube because it attracts more views, attracts more attention to your channel. It creates controversy. So it's more controversial to say all black women ain't shit than it is to say, well, actually only 22.3% of black women ain't shit. So if you're limited to only 22.3% of black, people are going to be like, okay, fuck his video. I ain't going to watch that video. But if you go as far as say all black women ain't shit, everybody going to be like, oh, I got to watch this video. They talking about all black women ain't shit or all black men ain't shit. So that's number one. When people express broad generalizations, and Steph was guilty of doing that in this video. Same thing he was guilty of doing, and I said this when I first got on YouTube. One of my top 3 pet peeves, and a lot of YouTube personalities have irritated me in this regard. I hate when people express subjective opinions as if they're gospel objective facts. I hate when people express strong opinions as if they're gospel objective, unrefutable facts. And Steph, if you happen to listen to this, you were guilty of doing that. You were guilty of doing that. That's the main 2 things I took exception to. Here's what Steph, I'm trying not to be too lengthy for the sake of time, because I already went over 25 minutes, so I knew I was going to do that. Now I'm trying to keep it under 45 minutes, But Steph made this assertion that he said, his main argument in his video was, he said, the number one reason why a lot of black men are choosing to align themselves with the SYSBM movement is because all black women only are attracted to street nigga types, hood type brothers, street nigga types and hood type brothers. And he basically made an argument that if you don't have any street in you, don't have a hood type background, then you're going to have some challenge. You're going to have a very challenging time having success with black women. Here's for you, Steph. Insert dog face here. Steph, you young. I think you're like in your mid-20s. You young, man. So you don't know no better. And I'm going to give you a pass just because of that. You young. I don't know your exact age, but somebody told me you were like 23, 24, 25, somewhere in that area. That video showed your youth and inexperience. Nothing could be further from the truth. and I've had this discussion with at least 2 other people. I remember specifically O'Shea Duke Jackson. I remember one time he had me as a guest on his channel. I can't remember if it was 2018 or last year. I think it was 2018. And he specifically asked me that question. Because he was asking me stuff about the whole educated lame versus Pookie and Ray Ray debate and argument. See, my non-black followers and listeners and viewers, they're not going to be able to relate to that. But my black male viewers know what I'm talking about. There's been this long-standing argument in social media, and particularly here on YouTube, among black men, that black women are not attracted to guys who they perceive as educated, corny lames, and they're more attracted to what us black men call street nigga types, or thug types, or hood types. And anyway, O'Shea asked me that specific question one time. He asked me, he said, Alan, I'm sure you're aware of the whole educated lame and Pookie versus Ray Ray. What are some of your thoughts and opinions on it? And what I told him is that anybody who tries to suggest that 95% of black women are only attracted to Pookie and Ray Ray, and if you're a highly educated dude, you're going to have problems with women, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I'm educated. I have a college degree. Okay? I ain't never had no problems getting laid. Let me just put that out there. I ain't never had no problems fucking getting laid. I ain't from the hood. And anybody who knows me knows I ain't from no hood. I didn't grow up. Matter of fact, I did a video, if y'all remember. I did a video last year where I talked about, I did 2 videos somewhat related to this time. I did one video last year about social stratification in the black community, where I touched on a few things that are related to this issue. And secondly, I did a video where I mentioned that a follower of mine, a black male follower of mine, he wrote me this long email. It was pretty long, actually. But one of the things he mentioned, he said, Alan, you have one of the most unique backgrounds of any dating coach out there, and particularly black male dating coaches. And he highlighted about 3 to 4 things. He said, you're about the only black male dating coach that I know that has a college degree, that both your parents were college educated, both your parents stayed married, were never divorced, and you didn't have a dysfunctional relationship with your mother and or father. And fourth, he said, you don't come across as like a street nigga, like a thug type, a hood type. You come across as like a middle class type brother. And all of those are valid. All of those are valid. And I made the point in my earlier video where I said, actually, I can't think of any other dating coach who has that type of background. I really can't. And if I'm wrong, I invited, like I did last week, I invited people to name another black dating coach that has all 4 of those characteristics. That has a college degree. Both of their parents have college degrees. Both their parents are college educated. Third, both their parents stayed married and they did not have any type of strained relationship with their mother and or father. They had a totally great relationship with both their mother and their father, and that didn't grow up in a lower social economic type background, i.e. the hood or the ghetto. Instead, they came from more of a middle class or upper middle class type background. I don't know of any. Again, if I'm wrong, y'all can name somebody. I don't know any other black male coaches that have all 4. I might know some that have 1 of those 4 traits, maybe as many as 2 of those 4 traits. But if you're talking about all 4 of those put together, I don't know another black male dating coach who has all 4 of those characteristics combined together. That has at minimum a bachelor's degree from an accredited university or college. Both their parents attended an accredited university or college. Their parents stayed married, were never divorced, and they didn't have any type of strained relationship with their mother and or father. And they didn't come from a low. Matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why I mentioned Mumia City Ali. If y'all know our backstory, that's how he first attacked me. That's how I first came to find out about Mumia Obsidian Ali. How I first came to even know who Obsidian was in late summer of 2015. He did a podcast where he came out basically attacking me, and he basically, in so many words, said Alan Roger Currie is too middle class, too bougie, as black people say. He essentially, in so many words, said Alan Roger Currie is too bougie for the average, everyday type black man to relate to him. He did say, he said, Alan Roger Currie does offer a lot of good advice to men, but he said, I think he's too bougie and too middle class to relate to like the everyday street type brother. The brother that's either from the hood or a brother that's from a working class, blue collar working class environment, and I fired back at him, and then the rest is history. But anyway, my point was, I disagree with Steph saying that all black women prefer guys that have traits of a street nigga or a hood type nigga. Basically a Pookie or Ray Ray. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Now, if he's speaking for his own generation, maybe I'll reserve my counter arguments. Maybe there might be more validity to it than I know. If he's talking about guys, maybe, I don't know, 18 to 29. Maybe the youngs. Well, see, I know that's not true because my girlfriend is from that generation. My girlfriend's 28. She don't gravitate towards no hood niggas. So for Steph to say that all black, he made the argument in his video that just about all black women, I want to say at least 90% of them, he suggested, go for more of the Pookie, Ray Ray, nigga from the hood type. I can only speak from my own experiences and my own observations, which is what I always do. I always speak from my personal experiences and my observations of other people's experiences. I went to college with a lot of guys that were not from the hood. That got a lot of pussy. I had frat brothers that do not have a hood background that got laid like regularly, that were top-notch ladies' men and womanizers. So I envy him. I have hood dudes who have come to me over the years for advice. So if all they needed was to be successful women was to be hood, then why are these guys coming to me? I've had quite a few black men who were like street types, hood types, that have come to me for dating advice. So why they come to me? Like, again, anybody who know my background know I didn't grow up in the hood. If you're familiar with Northwest Indiana, more specifically Gary, Indiana, that's the hometown of the Jackson 5, Michael Jackson. I grew up in a neighborhood of Gary, Indiana called Miller Beach, which is arguably considered the most affluent area of Gary, Indiana. It's the area that's northeast near the beach, near Lake Michigan Beach. And most of the homes, like 80% of the homes in Miller Beach neighborhood of Gary, Indiana, are like middle class, upper middle class type homes. Like you got doctors who lived in Miller Beach. You got esteemed attorneys, corporate executives. Most of your black high earners who lived in Gary, Indiana, I would say probably 3/4 of your most affluent, wealthiest black people who lived in Gary, Indiana, lived in Miller Beach. From 6th grade to the time I graduated high school, that's where I lived. I lived in Miller Beach. I ain't live in no hood. I ain't living like the projects and shit. Now, I've had interactions with a lot of guys who, like some of my friends in middle school, high school, were guys who grew up in the projects, grew up in what was known as the straight up hood. I have cousins on both sides. I would say arguably probably 1/3 of my cousins, male cousins, on my father's side and on my mother's side, were pretty much hood type dudes. Like I've had some cousins that have been in and out of jail and in and out of prison. So in terms of who I've interacted with, I've interacted with quite a few men and women over my life who are from the straight up hood. Now, that's where I would give Steph a compliment on something he said. In one portion of his video, he talked about the concept of code switching. Code switching. A lot of brothers I know, particularly college educated brothers, know how to code switch. For those of you ignorant to the term, what does it mean to code switch? That means, like, in simple terms, like you take me. A lot of people have said this about me, and I would say it about myself. I'm equally comfortable around upper class bougie types and just straight up street nigga types. I don't feel uncomfortable in either environment. And the main reason why is because I know how to code switch. Like, in other words, when I'm around straight up hood, street nigga types, I know how to talk their vernacular. I know how to talk their language. You know what I'm saying? I know how to basically speak their slang, their language, to a manner that would endear myself to them. But then on the other hand, when I'm around highly educated, highly intelligent, upper middle class bougie types, I know how to operate in that world too. And I would say at least 2/3 of the brothers I know how to do that. They know how to operate in both worlds. Whereas there's some black men, they only know how to operate in one or the other. Like I know some black men who are, say, from the streets. If you put them in a party or social event with a bunch of upper class bougie types, they would feel uncomfortable. They wouldn't know how to act. They would end up coming across as looking like an asshole. And on the flip side, there's a lot of guys I know who are straight up bougie types, upper middle class bougie types, where if you put them in a party or social environment where there's nothing but hood types and straight types, they would feel uncomfortable. They wouldn't know how to act. They would end up looking like, like a corny, lame nerd type. But a lot of brothers, they know how to go back and forth. Again, I would definitely say that's one of my talents. I know how to hang around just straight up street hardcore. Like when I was in LA, I used to play video games with guys that were from the street, gangbanger types. I know how to operate in their world, and I know how to operate in the upper middle class, what they call bougie type arena. Like I got some cousins that are very bougie, particularly female cousins that are very bougie. So I know how to do both. And again, I would say at least 2/3 of the guys I went to college with know how to do both. So that's the part that I agree with Steph when he said you will be at an extra advantage if you know how to code switch. So that was one thing he said I do agree with. But as far as the assertion that, here's what I would say instead of what he said. He said that basically that black women tend to gravitate towards men who are hood. I would replace hood with smooth and seductive. I would replace the word hood with smooth and seductive. And this goes back to my book, Who Said Again. That's over half the reason why I wrote my book, Who Said Again, was to point out to men who had read Mo 1 that being direct alone is not enough. Being direct alone is not enough. You have to know how to express yourself verbally in a manner that's confident, in a manner that's masculine, and in a manner that's charismatic, smooth, and persuasive, i.e. seductive. You have to. That's where the whole notion of the mouthpiece comes into play. You gotta have a mouthpiece, man. You gotta have a mouthpiece. So if Steph would have said, instead of saying all women gravitate towards black men, all black women gravitate towards black men that are hood, I disagree with that assertion. But if he would have changed that to the vast majority of black women gravitate towards black men who have a smooth, charismatic mouthpiece, then I would have been in 100% agreement with him. I give you a few non-black examples. Sean Connery as James Bond. Like he mentioned during his video about, he said that the only white guys that black women typically want to date or fuck are white guys who have kind of a hood demeanor about them, a hood type swagger. I would disagree with that. Sean Connery, you know, my own mother, I once went to the movies with my mother, and she embarrassed me by saying, my mother basically said she wasn't into white men, but she said if there was one white man she would have slept with if she wasn't married to my father, it was Sean Connery. And I had the reason why. She said because he was very smooth and confident. There wasn't nothing hood about Sean Connery. But that motherfucker, man, when it comes to movie actors, I don't know if too many guys could top Sean Connery in terms of being smooth, confident, masculine, smooth, charismatic, and seductive. That's the main reason why he was able to make a career off of playing James Bond. He is, to this day, most people's #1 favorite James Bond. Brad Pitt, who's about my age. Matter of fact, I think me and him are the same age. Ain't nothing hood about Brad Pitt. Ain't nothing hood about Brad Pitt. But I know a lot of black women, at least older black women. I don't know about younger black women like in their 20s and early to mid 30s. But if you're talking about black women who are, say, 40 years of age or older, I know a lot of black women who have told me they would have gave Brad Pitt some pussy. I know a lot of, trust me, I know a lot of black women who said, Alan, I would give Brad Pitt some pussy. Because he's smooth, man. Brad Pitt is smooth. He ain't hood, but he's smooth. He expresses himself in a very smooth manner. That's what I would say women love. Women love men who have a confident mouthpiece, a masculine mouthpiece, and a charismatic, smooth, persuasive, seductive mouthpiece. Because see, now one thing that I do halfway agree with that he said that actually made me laugh. Steph said, he said, black women don't want to hook up with the type of black guy that talks like this. It's like, hey, Diane, would you like to go to the party tonight? And then afterwards, maybe play some video games, for sure. Come on. Hey, Cindy, how are you doing? I mean, I'm going to be real, man. Yeah, if you're a brother that talks like that, like Damon Wayans, who, as most people know, when I did comedy, he was like my #1 mentor. He had a joke about that years ago to do with his son, who's now a grown adult. Damon Wayans Jr., I want to say his name is. Damon Wayans had a comedy bit where he said he was worried about his son growing up to be a nerd because he said because of his career success and financial success, Damon was living in, a pretty nice neighborhood. I think his neighborhood was predominantly white. And he said his son primarily only interacted with other white kids. And on top of that, he said his son was like a computer nerd. So he basically went on to say in this comedic bit, he said, I think my son's going to have challenges hooking up with sisters. Because these weren't his exact words, but essentially he was like, my son, now at this time, his son was only like 8, 9, or 10 years old. He wasn't, but now, again, he's a grown adult. But he said, my son, I can tell already, he's going to be like one of them nerdy type black people. For lack of a better term, when we were young, we used to call certain black people Oreos. Oreo, like the cookie, Oreos. An Oreo was a black person that was known for hanging around almost exclusively white people. Like if you were a black man or black woman and like 95 to 99% of your friends were Caucasian, you would get labeled an Oreo. People would say, oh, he's an Oreo or she's an Oreo. That's what they would say. They say he or she is an Oreo. And honestly, at the risk of generalizing, when I was young, a lot of Oreo types, that's how they talk. Like most of the black women who were Oreos, who were labeled Oreos, they would talk like a white girl. Most of the black men who were labeled as Oreos, they would talk like white guys. And anyway, Steph was saying that if you have what most people would call a white person's voice, you're probably going to turn off a lot of sisters because they're going to look at you as corny, lame, and all the associated terms. I don't know if I would say 100% agree with that, but I at least halfway agree with that. I halfway agree with that, man. Again, that goes back to, why I wrote Who Said Again. It's because I make the point, Who Said Again, that being direct with women alone is not... I'll give you a perfect example, and then I look to wrap up. I want to say about 2013, 2014, a bunch of my followers sent me this video of this guy called Asking Women for Sex at the Beach. And this Caucasian guy is asking about 100 women to have sex with him, and like at least 99 out of 100 women turned him down. And some of my followers like, Alan, I hate to say it, but this guy is almost showing that Mode 1 doesn't work. What are your thoughts on this video? And I watched the video, and I ended up highlighting two things with this video. Number one, he was asking women to have sex with him. I never ask a woman to have sex with me. I let women know I want to have sex with them. There's a difference. There's a difference between asking a woman to have sex with you and just letting a woman know that you want to fuck her. Those are two different things. There's a difference between me going up to a woman named Michelle and saying, hey, Michelle, would you like to have sex with me tonight? I would never, ever do that. I would never, ever do that. Ever. I would never go up to a woman and say, hey, so-and-so, would you like to have sex with me tonight? Or would you like to have sex with me this weekend? I would never do that. I would tell a woman, hey, Michelle, I think you're sexy and I want to fuck you at some point in the near future. Let me know your thoughts. That's how Alan Roger Currie roll. I let women know I want to fuck them and wait for them to either say, yes, I'm interested in fucking you too, or no, I'm not interested. But I don't ask. So that was the first thing that I felt that guy did wrong. And the second thing I told my followers when they sent me that video, I was like, listen to his voice. It's all corny and shit. It was basically like, hey, would you like to have sex with me? Man, come on, man. I've heard a lot of guys on YouTube, particularly in the last, I want to say 3 to 6 months, talking about the notion of having a mouthpiece is overrated and doesn't matter. That's bullshit. Somebody just put that in my comment section in my last video. My very last video, somebody put that in my comment section. They said a lot of these guys who are frustrated with women are typically tend to be guys who tend to believe that having a mouthpiece don't matter. Having a mouthpiece always matters, man. I'm telling you, man, that's the number one thing that has got me most of my pussy in my life. Real talk, particularly talking about casual sex. Most of the women I've had casual sex with, when I ask, sometimes I will ask women after I fuck them 2 or 3 times, like, what was the number one thing that attracted you to me? Was it my looks? Was it my sense of humor? What was it? Probably 3/4 of the women I've had casual sex with have told me that the number one thing that made them want to sleep with me was my mouthpiece and my erotic dirty talk skills. Close second was usually my looks. But number one was my talk dirty skills and just my overall mouthpiece. Women would always tell me, they say, you got a very smooth, seductive way of talking to women. Gotta have a mouthpiece, man. Anybody who says mouthpiece is not important at all is a motherfucker who ain't never had success having casual sex. Period. With the exception of guys who was tricking, spending money on women, tricking. But other than guys who was tricking, if you think a mouthpiece ain't important, then you ain't never seduced a high number of women into having casual sex with you. I guarantee you that. Mouthpieces, when it comes to casual sex, particularly more so than, say, relationship sex, casual sex, mouthpiece is everything, man. I'm telling you that right now. Sometimes that's more important than your looks, is your mouthpiece, man. You got to have a mouthpiece. So all that to say to do with Steph's video, I disagree because he kept saying facts. This is facts. What I'm telling you is facts. What he said was not facts. Again, his number one assertion was that the vast majority of black women are only attracted to guys who are from the hood. Again, I disagree with that. I'm not from the hood. I didn't grow up in the hood. I didn't grow up in the ghetto. I didn't grow up in Cabrini Green or on the west side of Chicago. I grew up in Miller Beach, Indiana, the neighborhood of Gary, Indiana, affluent neighborhood in Gary, Indiana. There wasn't nothing hood about me. I didn't grow up. I didn't have my parents made money, man. I didn't come from no lower socioeconomic background. But I knew how to talk. I knew, again, to Steph's other valid point, I've always known how to code switch. I can hang out with hood type brothers without them looking at me as, corny or without me feeling uncomfortable. And at the same time, I can hang out with ultra bougie, upper class, snobbish, snooty type black people too. Because I know how to code switch, man. Again, to me, probably 2/3 of the brothers I've known in my life, they know how to code switch. They can hang with either crowd. Some people can only hang with one crowd or the other. Again, I know some brothers, hood type brothers, if you were to take them to an upper middle class bougie type party, they would look totally out of place. They wouldn't be able to feel comfortable. And on the flip side, if you took some upper middle class bougie types and put them in a hood party, they would look totally out of place. They would feel totally uncomfortable. I'm not one of those brothers. Now, in my Patreon exclusive portion, a couple guys have asked me recently about the overcoming the fear of approaching women who are with at least one other person, whether it be their friend, sister, brother, parents, whatever. And I'm going to address that in my Patreon exclusive portion.